Welcome to cryptovision Mindshare 2016. I hope you can hear me.
Very well.
Very well. Okay, thanks. Well, welcome again to cryptovision Mindshare 2016. Today, I'm going to present you something very special. I'm going to take you on a time trip. We will travel 9 years ahead into the year 2025, and I hope you're feeling well. I'm going to start the time machine soon, and we're going to jump 9 years ahead. So let's start the time machine. I hope you had a nice time trip. It wasn't very long, but it was 9 years. We're 9 years into the future now. Welcome in the year 2025. And I'm going to give my Mindshare presentation of 2025 now. I hope you will enjoy it. Let me first introduce myself. My name is still Klaus Schmeh. I work for cryptovision. 1 year ago, in the year 2024, I celebrated my 20th anniversary at cryptovision. Well, I still love to work at this great company even after 20 years, and I still love to write books. The books you see here are the ones I wrote until 2016. Some of them were quite successful, but my greatest success, or my bestseller, came out a little later. It was published in the year 2024, and it was named Making Millions with Cryptography. The unbelievable success story of cryptovision. And I can tell you it's a really great book, and you don't even have to buy it, because I will tell you everything that is important in this book. For example, the book starts in the year 1999, when cryptovision was founded, but the years between 1999 and 2016 will not be covered in my presentation, because my co-worker Klaus Schmeh will cover them in his presentation, which will come later this morning. I will focus on the time between 2016 and 2025, and I can tell you cryptovision has been very successful in these years. For example, this is our branch in London, which we established in 2022. Then our branch in New York City moved to this building in 2024. And for 2026, we have another interesting plan. We want to start cryptovision Moon, and cryptovision Mars will be founded in 2030. Well, all this is covered in my book, and I can tell you, in recent years, the security world has become quite simple, because nowadays there are only two major players on the market. The one is the NSA, and the other one is, of course, cryptovision. Okay, what else is in the book? Well, of course, I have written a few chapters about cryptovision products. As some of you know, we have a great PKI solution named Camelot. It's the world's leading PKI solution, at least it has come to be so in recent years. And even the way PKI projects take place has considerably changed in recent years. So if you look back in the year 2016, this is how a PKI product looked like 9 years ago. Well, this is what the customer wants. This is what the vendor proposes. This is what the customer wants to pay. And this is what is actually built. But as I said, there has been some progress in recent years, because nowadays the world's leading PKI product is Camelot, cryptovision product, of course, and nowadays the PKI project looks like this. This is what the customer wants. This is what cryptovision proposes. This is what the customer wants to pay. and this is what is actually built.
No cloud.
Huh?
No cloud.
No cloud, yes. Well, maybe we should add something like cloud computing. That sounds like a good idea. But we are not building cloud castles, or we are not building castles in the air. But, well, of course, Camelot isn't the only product we have. We also have our award-winning smart card middleware SC interface. And SC interface is sometimes compared with the Swiss Army pocket knife. And I think it is even justified to compare SC interface with the biggest Swiss Army pocket knife that has ever come to the market, the Wenger Giant. The Wenger Giant has so many tools, it's almost impossible to count them all, and this is just like SC interface. SC interface has so many, or it supports so many interfaces, so many cards, and so many operating systems, it's almost impossible to count. And in the year 2009, when this pretty big Swiss Army pocket knife was sold at Amazon, there were a lot of funny and of course ironic comments like, great product, however the coffee made with the built-in coffee machine tastes a little watery. Or something like, great tool, but the built-in vacuum cleaner is a little noisy. Well, all this was quite funny in the year 2009, but meanwhile, SC interface has somehow become the new Wenger Giant, because as you all know, SC interface supports just about every card, smart card on the market, with in just about every form factor, on just about every platform, with just about every operating system, with just about every interface. So it's justified to call this the new Swiss Army pocket knife. And again, there were a lot of interesting and ironic comments on the internet, just like, great product, however, when I use SC interface to connect my vacuum cleaner with my car stereo, the sound is a little fading. Another one was, great solution, however, when I use SC interface to connect the mouth of my baby girl with my motorbike gear shift, the motor starts to stutter. Well, this is our product, SC interface, very flexible, highly interesting product. But as some of you certainly know, we are also in the business of email encryption or email security. Our product is of course named S-Mail. However, email encryption has always been kind of a problem because many people simply don't use it. Or as the German Member of Parliament Thomas Jarzenbeck said in the year 2014, email encryption is like teenager sex. Everybody talks about it and everybody thinks others do it. In fact, only few of you do it, and for them it doesn't work very well. And this is certainly true. And this is even proven by a number of scientific works, by a number of scientific surveys. So if we look at the share encrypted email has of all emails, we see it was about 4% in 2005, it was about 4% in 2010, it was about 4% in 2015. Well, it became 30% in 2020, and I'm going to tell you why a little later. There have also been a couple of interesting scientific works. For example, in 1999, a research paper was published. It was named Why Johnny Can't Encrypt, and it said 9 out of 12 persons could not encrypt with PGP. In 2006, there was another research paper. It was named Why Johnny Still Can't Encrypt, and it said 6 out of 6 persons could not encrypt with PGP. In 2015, the next research paper was published. It was named Why Johnny Still Can't Encrypt, and it said 9 out of 10 persons tested could not work with PGP. And finally, in 2021, there was a research paper named Why Johnny Still Can't Encrypt, and it said, well, 8 out of 10 persons could not correctly read the title of this paper, and they couldn't use PGP anyway. Well, and there's another interesting research paper from 2018, Why Johnny Doesn't Understand Email Encryption Error Messages. Very interesting paper. For example, in this paper, an error message of the email tool Mail is mentioned, and this error message looked like this. It said, ASCII armor integrity check on message failed, NL plus Z should be PHAC. Does anybody understand it? Well, at least for users, it might be a little difficult to know what was behind this error message. But there was one serious advantage, because Mail is a multi-language tool. So it's easily possible to translate this language into German. So let's see how this message was translated. It read, this encrypted message could not be read. It's a lot clearer, but in the end it doesn't say anything either. So it was no wonder that 1 year later there was another research paper titled, Why Johnny Kills You If You Even Mention Email Encryption. Okay, but wait, there's also very good news about email encryption, and this good news is usually about our email encryption tool, Smail. So in 2019, there was a research paper titled, Why Johnny Can Encrypt If He Uses cryptovision Smail, and it said 100 out of 100 people tested could easily encrypt with cryptovision Smail. Very nice result. And if you now wonder why in the year 2020 the share of encrypted email went up to 30%, it's clearly because Smail has become the #1 email tool in the world, and this is also called the Smail effect. So it always depends on which or on what email encryption tool you use. Okay, what else is in this best-selling book? I also talk about a very recent cultural phenomenon. And this recent cultural phenomenon is based on an old cultural phenomenon, which is older than more than 10 years old. This older cultural phenomenon is known as the Chuck Norris facts. Have you ever heard about Chuck Norris facts? Yes. Well, you know, Chuck Norris was an actor 10 years ago, very successful, a very strong and very successful man. And a typical Chuck Norris fact, which you can read on many websites, would be Chuck Norris can see all 6 sides of a tube at the same time. Well, if Chuck Norris drops into water, he doesn't get wet, but the water gets Chuck Norris. Chuck Norris can count to infinity even twice a day. Well, this is the old cultural phenomenon. Meanwhile, it has been superseded. So in 2020, Chuck Norris facts were superseded by Markus Hofmeister facts. So typical Markus Hofmeister facts would be Markus Hofmeister can do secure multi-part computation even on his own. Or another one would be Markus Hofmeister can design a crypto system so strong that even he himself can break it. Most people use passwords, some people use passphrases. Markus Hofmeister uses an epic pass novel. Okay, this is the cultural phenomenon I describe in my book, but there are other interesting things in this book. For example, I have a chapter about a certain protocol, a cryptographic protocol. So most of you certainly know Bruce Schneier, the cryptologist. In 1996, he published a best-selling book named Applied Cryptography. And in this book, there's a chapter about a crypto protocol for committing the perfect crime, which sounds very useful in my view. This is how the protocol looks like, the crypto protocol for committing the perfect crime. Well, step number 1, Alice kidnaps a baby. Step number 2, Alice demands a $1 million ransom payable with an anonymous internet payment scheme. Step number 3, the money is paid. And step number 4, Alice frees the baby. I'm not kidding, this is really in this book. And the advantage is of this protocol is that Alice, who has kidnapped the baby, doesn't need to get in direct touch with the parents of this baby for receiving the ransom money. So the money handover is extremely easy if you use a good internet payment scheme. Well, all this was theory in 1996. In about 20 years later, it became almost reality, but thank God it's not about kidnapping a baby, but it's about encrypting data. I'm talking about so-called ransomware. A ransomware is a malicious software that encrypts your files, and it demands a ransom for giving you the key for decrypting. So it's not very nice if you have the ransomware on your PC, but for many people the only choice is to pay to get their data back. And meanwhile, there's a considerable variety of ransomware on the market. For example, NSA ransomware. It's NSA branded. Well, of course, it wasn't really created by the NSA, but it looks like that, and probably it makes quite an impression on many people who get it. There's also, this is very interesting, it's a ransomware with a live chat feature. That means if you don't know how to pay the money, or if you get the key and you don't know how to use it, you can use the live chat feature to get in touch with the service technician, and he will answer within a couple of seconds. Now the question is, well, is this a feature that works properly? And people say yes. So this afternoon we will hear a presentation by Professor Angela Sasse from London, and she once said, say what you will about cyber criminals, but their victims rave about customer service. So customer service of these ransomware producers seems to be very good. Almost as good as the one of cryptovision. This one is also very interesting. It's a ransomware with an uninstaller. That means once you have paid the money and you have got your data back, you can uninstall the ransomware so it doesn't waste space on your hard drive. Or if you decide not to pay, you can also uninstall it, but then you won't get your data back. And at least it seems to work. This one is also very interesting. It's the so-called Robin Hood ransomware. It promises to donate the ransom money to children's charity organization. If it's true, it's certainly the best ransomware that is available on the market, but honestly, I doubt it. This is a ransomware type I don't like very much. Why? Because it doesn't use cryptography. So the only reason why I find the ransomware a little bit interesting is because it uses cryptography, but this one doesn't. This ransomware, if it affects you, says if you don't pay, all your personal files will be published on the internet. So basically, you can pick your poison. Do you want your data to be lost, or do you want your data to be published on a website so everybody can see it? I don't know what is better, and of course it depends a lot on what you do in your spare time. Well, in the year 2022, something new came up in the field of ransomwares, the so-called brain ransomware. So, as you all know, nowadays most of us have a chip implant in their head which supports our brain activities. And if one day you happen to have a vision telling you pay $500 or else your brain will be shut down, you know that you are affected by a brain ransomware. Well, doesn't sound very nice, but the good news is that this kind of ransomware has been very successful in recent years, simply because, surprisingly, many people don't use their brains anyway. What else is in the book? Well, one of the highlights in my professional career at Cryptovision was a presentation I gave at an NSA conference in the USA, the NSA Crypto History Symposium. I gave a presentation titled Unsolved Cryptograms from Criminals and Crime Victims. This is what I talked about to an NSA and non-NSA audience, and I decided to do something very special. I used Lego brick models for reenacting the criminal cases I was talking about. So, for example, this was one of the models I used. It's about a story that took place in Australia in 1948, or a criminal case of 1948 in Australia. In this year, a man was found on a place named Somerton Beach, next to Adelaide, and he was lying close to the seashore. He was seen by several witnesses, and the day after he was found dead at exactly this position. And it was not clear why he died. It might have been poisoning, maybe it was a murder, maybe it was suicide, maybe it was even something like an allergic reaction. This is not clear until today. But what is mostly outstanding in this case is that the man, and this is how he looked like, he was never identified. And in my view, it's absolutely astonishing that the man that was found, and a picture is available which looks quite good, that nobody ever came up and told police who this man was. It was simply impossible to identify him. The picture was published in almost every newspaper in Australia. When this didn't help, it was also published in other countries. There were TV documentations about this man, the Somerton man, but it didn't help. So for 75 years, it's simply unknown who this man was. Another interesting aspect about this case is that when the body was searched, a piece of paper was found in the possession of this man. This is how it looked like. It's, well, basically 4 lines of letter sequences with no obvious meaning. So it might be an encryption. And of course it would be more than interesting to decrypt this encryption because it might contain information about this criminal case, which is still unsolved. But so far, nobody has been able to break this encryption. There has been some progress in recent years, so many experts think that these letters are word initials, so maybe the whole, all the letter sequences might be the short form of a text, but so far nobody has found out what kind of text it is, if it has any relationship with this murder case or with this death case. And so it's an unsolved criminal case connected to an unsolved encryption, and this is what I was talking about at this NSA conference, using Lego models. And if you don't believe me, this is the photograph I took at this presentation. Here you see one of my Lego models. It's my favorite one actually. This is professional. And this is me. And this is the chief code breaker of the FBI. Even he couldn't break the cases I introduced. And at least you see that they are a little bit amused. I don't know if they liked my presentation, but at least they were laughing. And this was also covered in the newsletter of this building here. The criminal stories from the Lego case. And what was a great experience for me. Was certainly not the most important thing for my professional career, but it was funny. And another thing that is funny, each time I come to an NSA conference, which happens once in a while, I go to the NSA gift shop, because there's only one in the world at the NSA headquarters near Washington. They can buy things like NSA sweatshirts and t-shirts. You can buy NSA Christmas tree decoration. You can even buy NSA teddy bears. I'm not kidding, all this is original. And NSA ribs. And even NSA eagles. Well, always very interesting. They also have a museum, but I think the gift shop is a lot more interesting than the whole museum. Okay, so let's get back to the book, the best-selling book I wrote. In 2016, I gave a presentation at the RSA conference. The RSA conference is known as the most important crypto event in the world. My presentation was named, "Does the risk of criminal activity justify a ban of strong encryption?" Well, certainly a very interesting topic. But for giving this presentation, I decided to change my identity. I decided to become Sherlock Schmeh, the crypto detective. And so I gave my presentation as Sherlock Schmeh. Well, I looked in my presentation at a few criminal cases, like this one. By the way, this is not a cartoon drawing, it's an original picture published by the police. It shows the masked man. The masked man was a child murderer in Germany. He killed several children before he got arrested. And in his possession, the police found a couple of encrypted hard drives. And of course, the police would have liked to decrypt these hard drives, but they were not successful. So obviously, the masked man had a good password and a good encryption program. And until today, so after I think 5 or 6 years, police could not decrypt these data, although it would be very interesting because meanwhile, the masked man has been condemned to life in prison, but some of the cases are still unsolved. But obviously he used a good encryption tool and police wasn't able to decrypt. Well, this is another case, the Anna Chapman spy case. Anna Chapman was a spy, a Russian spy in the USA, and when she was arrested, police found encrypted data on her laptop. This time, police could decrypt it because they found the password. Well, cases like these led FBI Director James Comey to say, we need backdoors in encryption products. But then, well, when I came to play, at least in my presentation I came to play, and I asked myself, well, do we really need these backdoors for police encryption products? Of course, we here at cryptovision wouldn't like to include any backdoors in our solutions. So what I had to do, I did the research, I was searching for criminal cases involving modern encryption, and finally I came up with 50 cases, so there was quite a lot I found online because there's a lot of information about it. Of course, the masked man case was in my collection, and the Anna Chapman spy case was in my collection. And then I did little statistics. For example, I wanted to know which offenses were covered in my case collection. Well, child porn cases were the most popular ones. So as it seems, many child porn offenders use file encryption, and the police has a lot of trouble with them. Then murder cases, terrorism, espionage, hacking, financial, drugs, and others. Well, child porn seemed to be the most important ones. Was police successful in solving the encryption? Well, in 33 out of 50 cases, they weren't. And only in 11 cases, they were successful. So it's a major problem for police. This is very clear to see. In most cases, police lost. This is another, well, this is probably the case that caused the most publicity in recent years. It was the San Bernardino shooting in 2015. It took place in California, and there were 2 perpetrators. Both were killed by police directly after the offense, and one of these perpetrators had an encrypted iPhone. And now an interesting discussion started. First of all, James Comey, the FBI director, said, Apple has to help us decrypting this iPhone. Then Apple CIO Tim Cook came and said, no way. And then Donald Trump came and said, boycott all Apple products. This was the state of discussion when I gave my presentation. A little later, James Comey came again and he said, yeah, we broke the encryption without Apple's help. And so this case was more or less closed, but of course the discussion was going on, and still there are many cases in the news about the police trying to decrypt data, and usually they can't. So the question in my presentation was, do we need backdoors? I had looked at 50 cases. In some cases, the encryption was bypassed, so no backdoor was not necessary. Some cases were solved without the encryption being broken. Some cases would not have been solved even if the encryption was broken. And some suspects would have used foreign products without backdoor, so if a backdoor was requested. So my conclusion at the end was, in only 1 or 2 cases out of 50, solving the encryption would have solved the crime. So my impression is that backdoors should not be overestimated. And the final conclusion or the final question in my presentation was, does the risk of criminal activity justify backdoors? And my answer was, of course, no. Well, This is a picture or a photograph that was taken at the RSA conference. So it's a proof that I really talk about this topic. And there was a lot of press coverage, for example, in the PC magazine or on the Tech Week in web portal, and even Der Spiegel. It's the first time in my life that the Spiegel reports about something I do for my profession. That was quite interesting. And what was even more interesting, just below the article about my interview, there was another article about sexual excitement. I really don't know if this is a coincidence, but probably not. And the whole thing is also called the going dark debate, because some people fear that police efficiency is going dark if all the criminals use encryption, and others fear that crypto is going dark if politicians want to ban it. Well, of course, we don't want crypto vectors in our program, so we're certainly on the crypto's going dark side. So let me, as the last chapter of my presentation, let me talk about another book I wrote. It's about steganography. And steganography is the science or the art of hiding information. Very interesting, and it has very interesting applications. For example, if you look at this Canadian gravestone, which is real, it exists in Montreal, and if you look at the text that is written on this gravestone, and if you look only at the starting letters, you will see this is an example of steganography, and I think a very interesting application. But there are other examples. I'm going to show you a few as I'm going through history, starting in the 16th century. So in the 16th century, it became possible to hide a message in a prayer. So if you think that this is a prayer written in Latin, you're absolutely correct, but it contains a hidden message. This is the substitution table given in the 16th century crypto book. And if you look at the word cognitor, we have it here, cognitor, it means the message starts with a C. Incomprehensibilis stands for na, pastor stands for a Y, fortissimus stands for a P, and if we go through the whole prayer, we get cryptovision. I don't know if the message cryptovision was also known in the 16th century, but the technique was invented 500 years ago, which I think is quite interesting. But there have been other interesting developments in the history of cryptography. For example, in 1930, it became possible to hide an A4 photocopy in a dot, literally in a dot. This technology is called the microdot. So if you look at this dot here, you can clearly see that there's a message hidden in this. Can anybody see it? Yes. Probably not. Really? Well, it looks like this. So it was easily possible to hide an A4 letter and such a small space. And this microdot technology was heavily used by spies in the Second World War. But it becomes even better. In 1970, it became possible to code a 100-byte message on a 0.1 millimeter particle. So this is a one. Well, maybe you can see this one, 1.1 millimeter particle, and this is how it looks like a little magnified. You see, it contains a few color rings, and these color rings code a message. And there's an interesting application for this technology, the so-called microtaggants. So if you put a number of probably several hundred microtaggants into, let's say, a bottle of ink or ammunition or graffiti spray, and if this microtaggants codes the producer of this ink or ammunition or graffiti spray, it's very helpful for police. When they encounter, for example, a graffiti and they find microtaggants in this graffiti, it helps a lot to identify the perpetrator. There's even one case where this technology helped to solve a crime. That was in 1979 in Maryland. A man named Nathan Allen came to his car when he came back to work, and then suddenly there was an explosion, and he died. This explosion was caused by a bomb, so it was certainly a murder case, but the police could not solve the case because it was absolutely impossible to find the person who had put the bomb there. But when the police examined the explosive that was used, they found micro-taggants. They looked a little bit like this, and when they looked at the message that was coded in these micro-taggants, it turned out to be HDEO2A146, and this could be decrypted to DuPont, which was the producer of this explosive, Torex 220, which was the kind of explosive or the product name. The production date could also be determined, and it could be determined that it was produced in Martinsburg, West Virginia. So when the producer looked at its records, he found that exactly this piece of explosive was sold to a retailer in Martinsburg, and one of the customers of this retailer was the uncle of the murder victim. So the rest was pretty simple. The case was solved, and so micro-taggants and steganography helped to solve a murder case. But it becomes even better because in 2005 another very interesting kind of steganography was invented. It became possible to hide 15 bytes or 15 bytes message in a spam mail. A very useful invention. All you need to do is go to this website, Spam Mimic, and type in the message. For example, cryptovision, which is the short message, and then it gets coded as a spam mail. You can send this mail to the recipient, and if he types it in on the same page, he will get the message back. And the message in this case is cryptovision. But it becomes even better. In 2022, it became possible to transport a person with an unlimited amount of information in an untraceable way. It's the best kind of steganography that can be thought of. Well, all you need are two teleporters, like you probably know from Star Trek. And then you need a person with a lot of information, like paperwork in his hand. And then you just say, beam me up, Scotty. And then the person is transported, including all the information. And it's absolutely untraceable. It's certainly the best invention that has come to the market in the last 20 years. Okay, so I'm almost done now. My future plan will be to write another book. This one is called Making Billions with Cryptography. The next one will be called Making Billions with Cryptography number 2. Why Bill Gates would like to become the second Markus Hofmeister. And let me finish with another Markus Hofmeister fact. If crypto is going dark, Markus Hofmeister will turn on the light. Thank you.